A surgical scar still tender from where they'd taken my kidney just 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks since I'd given Robert a piece of myself, literally, to save his life. 6 weeks since I'd whispered, "I love you," as they wheeled me into surgery, believing we'd grow old together. Now I was staring at legal documents that called our 8-year marriage irreconcilable differences. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. "Sorry you had to find out this way. Simone and I are getting married next month. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Simone." His physical therapist from the kidney center. The woman who'd held his hand during recovery while I was still hooked up to my own fighting through my own pain. I doubled over in my Honda Civic, the steering wheel digging into my forehead as sobs tore through me. This wasn't just betrayal, this was theft. I'd given him my kidney, my love, my future, and he'd walked away with all of it. The parking garage echoed with my cries, each sob sending sharp pains through my healing incision. Other people walked past my car, their heels clicking on the concrete, living their normal lives while mine crumbled around me. How do you process this? How do you make sense of saving someone's life only to have them destroy yours? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called the only person who'd understand. "Grandma Ruby? Baby girl? What's wrong? You sound like your world just ended." It did. The words came out in gasps between tears. "Robert, he's divorcing me. After everything. After I gave him my kidney." The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Ruby? I'm here, baby. I'm just trying to find words that won't make me cuss in the Lord's house. You come home right now. Come to Grandma." I drove through Atlanta traffic in a daze, muscle memory taking me to the little house in East Point where Grandma Ruby had raised me after my parents died. The same house where she taught me that black women had to be twice as strong as everyone else, but that being strong didn't mean letting people walk all over you. She was waiting on the porch, her silver hair caught up in the colorful head wrap she wore when she was serious about business. At 72, Ruby Thomas still commanded respect from everyone in the neighborhood. I collapsed into her arms like I was 12 years old again, and she held me while I told her everything. About how Robert had been distant since the surgery. About the credit card bills he'd been hiding. About coming home early from work yesterday to surprise him and finding Simone in our kitchen, wearing my apron, cooking dinner like she belonged there. And the worst part, Grandma? She thanked me. Right there in my kitchen, she thanked me for saving his life so they could be together. Ruby's arms tightened around me. "Lord, give me strength not to drive over there right now. What am I supposed to do? I gave him a part of me I can never get back." "No, baby." Ruby pulled back to look at me, her dark eyes fierce. "You gave him a gift. A gift that came from your heart, your sacrifice, your love. That kidney is still yours, it's your love keeping him alive. And love like that? That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. But he threw it all away. He threw away his blessing. That's on him. But you're still blessed. You're still whole. And you're still here for a reason." We sat on that porch until the street lights came on, Ruby holding my hand while I tried to figure out how to rebuild a life that had been shattered by the very person I'd tried to save. 3 days later, I was back at Piedmont Hospital for my post-surgical follow-up, trying to pretend my life hadn't imploded. Dr. Camille Brooks had been my attending physician during the donation process, and she'd become something of a mentor. At 45, she was everything I aspired to be: confident, accomplished, respected. She'd also become the head of nephrology after working her way up from nothing, just like me. "How's the pain level?" she asked, examining my incision. "Physical pain is manageable. Everything else." I shrugged, not trusting my voice. Dr. Brooks looked up from her chart. "I heard about Robert." "I'm so sorry, Denise." Of course she'd heard. Hospital gossip traveled faster than infection. "I feel so stupid. Like everyone knew but me." "You're not stupid. You're generous. There's a difference." She helped me sit up on the examination table. "You know, in 15 years of transplant medicine, I've seen a lot of donors make this same sacrifice. Most of them do it out of love. Some get appreciated, some get taken for granted. But you're the first one who's been thrown away like garbage." The clinical way she said it should have hurt, but instead it felt validating. Someone else saw how wrong this was. What am I supposed to do now? Financially, I'm ruined. I took unpaid leave for the surgery and recovery. Our joint account is empty, he cleaned it out. The house is in his name. I don't even have money for a lawyer. Dr. Brooks was quiet for a long moment, the kind of quiet that meant she was thinking. "You know, there might be something we can explore. Medical expenses related to organ donation are supposed to be covered by the recipient's insurance. If Robert's not taking care of those bills..." "What do you mean?" I mean, you might have grounds for a lawsuit. Not just for the divorce, but for medical fraud, abandonment of financial responsibility, maybe even intentional infliction of emotional distress. Hope flickered in my chest. But I can't afford a lawyer. Let me make some calls. I know people who handle cases like this. Pro bono work for organ donors who've been mistreated. She scribbled something on her prescription pad. In the meantime, I have an offer for you. We have an opening for a transplant coordinator position. You'd be working directly with donor families, helping them through the process. The pay is better than your current position, and the hours are more flexible. But I'm not qualified. You're uniquely qualified. You've been through this process. You understand it from the inside. She handed me the paper with a phone number. Think about it. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us prepares us for the best thing that's coming. I left the hospital feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Possibility. Maybe this wasn't just the end of my old life. Maybe it was the beginning of something better. That evening I called Tasha Williams, my best friend since nursing school. She was a social worker specializing in family crisis intervention, which made her uniquely equipped to handle my drama. "Girl, I've been waiting for you to call me back," she said before I could even say hello. "I heard through the grapevine what Robert did, and I'm ready to slash his tires. Don't tempt me. I'm serious. What kind of man divorces the woman who saved his life? And does it through legal papers? Like you're some stranger? The kind who was probably planning this the whole time." The words tasted bitter. "Tasha, I think he married me for my kidney." "What do you mean?" I told her about the timeline. How Robert had started getting serious right after my blood work came back as a perfect match. How he'd pushed for marriage when his kidney function started declining. How he'd insisted on joint accounts and putting the house in his name for tax reasons. That manipulative piece of, Tasha caught herself. "Sorry? I'm trying to curse less for the kids at work. But Denise, if what you're saying is true, this isn't just divorce. This is fraud. Dr. Brooks thinks I might have a legal case." Dr. Brooks is right. And you know what else? I think you need to document everything. Every conversation, every financial transaction, every lie he told. Because this man didn't just break your heart, he stole from you. That night, I sat at Grandma Ruby's kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, writing down everything I could remember. The inconsistencies in Robert's stories. The way he'd insisted on handling all our finances. The credit cards he'd opened in my name without telling me. The life insurance policy he'd taken out on me right before the surgery. By morning, I had 7 pages of evidence. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had some power back. The law office of Martinez and Associates didn't look like much from the outside. A strip mall location between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. But Maria Martinez had a reputation for taking on cases that other lawyers wouldn't touch, especially when they involved medical exploitation. "I've reviewed your documentation," she said, spreading my 7 pages of notes across her desk. "And I've spoken with Dr. Brooks. We have enough here for several potential claims." My heart raced. "Really? Medical fraud, definitely. Your ex-husband used you for a kidney transplant under false pretenses, then immediately abandoned the marriage. That's textbook fraud." She pulled out a thick folder. "But here's what's really interesting. I did some digging into Robert's finances." She opened the folder to reveal bank statements, credit reports, and property records. "Your ex-husband has been planning this for at least 2 years. He opened credit cards in your name, took out a second mortgage on the house, and started moving money into accounts you didn't know about." The room spun. "How much money?" "About $80,000 in debt assigned to you, plus he's hidden approximately $50,000 in assets." Maria's voice was gentle but firm. "Denise, this man didn't just divorce you. He systematically destroyed your financial life while using you for an organ transplant." I couldn't breathe. The betrayal was so much worse than I'd imagined. "Can we prove it?" "With Dr. Brooks' help, yes. She's documented the timeline of your relationship correlating with his medical needs. Plus, we have the insurance records showing he specifically requested you as his donor." Maria leaned forward. "But here's the beautiful part. Because organ donation creates a permanent medical relationship, he's still financially responsible for any complications you have related to the surgery. For life." "What does that mean?" "It means if you have any health issues related to the kidney donation, pain, complications, follow-up surgeries, anything, he has to pay for it. It's written into the organ donation agreements he signed." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not a big smile, but real. "How do we start?" "We start by freezing all joint accounts and filing an emergency motion to prevent him from transferring any more assets." Then we hit him with fraud charges, medical abandonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Maria grinned. By the time we're done, he'll wish he'd never met you. I left the lawyer's office feeling stronger than I had since the divorce papers arrived. This wasn't just about getting my life back. This was about making sure no other woman went through what I was going through. My phone rang as I got to my car. Unknown number. Hello? Denise? This is Simone. The voice was sugar-sweet, almost sing-song. I think we should talk. My blood pressure spiked. I have nothing to say to you. But I have something to say to you. About Robert. About things you need to know. Like what? Like the fact that you weren't his first donor match. Like the fact that he's done this before. The words hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about? Meet me at the Starbucks on Peachtree in 1 hour. Come alone. And Denise? You're going to want to hear what I have to say. The line went dead. I sat in my car shaking. What did she mean he'd done this before? How could Robert have had other donor matches? The medical records showed I was his only viable option. Unless they lied about that too. I called Tasha, but it went to voicemail. I called Grandma Ruby, but she was at her church committee meeting. Finally, I called Dr. Brooks. Dr. Brooks, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Was I really Robert's only kidney donor match? The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know. Denise, patient confidentiality prevents me from. He's not your patient anymore. Please. I need to know. Another long pause. You were his best match. But you weren't his only match. My hands started shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. How many others? 2 other potential donors. Both declined after meeting with him. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't relevant to your decision. You wanted to help your husband. That was your choice to make. But it was relevant. It was completely relevant. Because it meant Robert had specifically chosen me, not because I was his only option, but because I was the one most likely to say yes. The one who loved him enough to do it without question. I hung up and drove to Starbucks, my mind racing. What else had Robert lied about? And why was Simone, of all people, the one trying to tell me the truth? Simone looked nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined someone glamorous, someone who could steal a man away with her beauty. Instead, she was ordinary, brown hair in a ponytail, minimal makeup, wearing scrubs like she'd just gotten off work. She was already sitting at a corner table when I arrived, clutching a coffee cup with both hands. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "Start talking." I wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. "Robert told me you knew about us. That you were okay with the divorce. That you wanted him to be happy." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I believed him until yesterday." "What happened yesterday?" I found his computer open. He was looking at dating profiles. Active profiles. Posted 3 days ago. She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. "He's looking for his next mark." My stomach dropped. There was Robert's face smiling out from a dating app, his profile reading recent kidney transplant recipient looking for someone special to share my second chance at life with. This son of a... I caught myself remembering we were in public. It gets worse. Simone scrolled to another screenshot. Look at what he wrote in his bio. I read it and felt sick. My donor was a wonderful woman who gave me the gift of life. Now I'm ready to find my soulmate to share this new chapter with. "He's using your kidney donation as a pickup line," Simone said, her voice shaking. "Making himself sound noble and grateful while he throws you away like garbage." I stared at her. "Why are you showing me this? You got what you wanted, him." "Because I didn't know." Tears started falling down her cheeks. "I swear to God, Denise, I didn't know he was planning to leave you. He told me your marriage was already over, that you were just waiting until after the surgery to make it official. He said you were both seeing other people. And you believed him?" I wanted to believe him. I was lonely and he was this charming man who'd been through so much. But yesterday when I saw those dating profiles, I realized he lied to both of us. I studied her face looking for deception. All I saw was regret and fear. "There's more," she continued. "I did some digging after I saw the profiles. Denise, you're not the first woman he's done this to." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "His first wife, Jennifer. They divorced 5 years ago, right after she donated bone marrow to him when he had cancer. The coffee shop around us seemed to fade away. He had cancer? Lymphoma. Jennifer donated bone marrow, saved his life, and he divorced her 6 months later. Cleaned out their accounts and left her with all the medical debt." I couldn't speak. This was a pattern. Robert was a predator who specifically targeted women willing to save his life, then discarded them once he got what he needed. How do you know this? I hired a private investigator yesterday. After seeing those dating profiles, I got scared. I thought, if he could lie to you about our relationship, what was he lying to me about? She pulled out a manila folder. Here's everything my PI found. Jennifer's contact information, court records from their divorce, medical records showing the bone marrow donation. I opened the folder with trembling hands. There it all was, documented proof that Robert Thompson was a serial predator who used his medical conditions to manipulate women into saving his life, then financially destroyed them. Jennifer wants to talk to you, Simone said. She's been waiting 5 years for another victim to come forward. She tried to warn people, but no one believed her. They thought she was just a bitter ex-wife. Why are you helping me? Simone wiped her eyes. Because I realized I'm not his girlfriend. I'm his next victim. And after you there'll be another one and another one. This has to stop. I looked at this woman who'd been sleeping in my bed, cooking in my kitchen, stealing my husband, and felt something unexpected, compassion. She'd been manipulated too. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to help you destroy him, she said, her voice getting stronger. I want to make sure he never does this to another woman. And I want to help you get back everything he stole from you. Starting with what? Starting with this. She pulled out a key. Robert gave me a key to a storage unit where he's been hiding things. Financial documents, personal items he took from your house, some things that belonged to Jennifer. He's been keeping trophies. The word trophies sent chills down my spine. This wasn't just fraud, it was psychological torture on a level I'd never imagined. I took the key. When? Tonight. I'll text you the address. And Denise? Bring your lawyer. We're going to need evidence that will hold up in court. As I drove home, I called Maria Martinez and told her everything. By the time I finished, she was practically shouting with excitement. Denise, this changes everything. We're not just talking about divorce fraud anymore. We're talking about a pattern of criminal behavior that spans multiple victims. This is going to be a federal case. Federal? Mail fraud, wire fraud, insurance fraud, medical fraud, all federal crimes. And with multiple victims across state lines, the FBI is going to be very interested in Robert Thompson. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something powerful growing inside me. Not just anger or hurt, but purpose. This wasn't just about getting my life back anymore. This was about protecting every woman Robert might target in the future. The storage unit was in a rundown facility on the outskirts of Decatur. Maria Martinez met me there at 9 p.m., along with Simone and a court stenographer she'd brought to document everything we found. Are you sure about this? I asked Simone as we stood outside Unit B47. I'm sure. She looked different tonight, determined instead of scared. He gave me this key thinking I'd never use it. He doesn't know I figured him out. The metal door rolled up with a screech, and Maria shined her flashlight inside. What we saw made us all step back in shock. The unit was organized like a twisted museum. File boxes labeled with women's names. Personal items arranged on shelves. Photo albums. Even jewelry. My God, Maria whispered. How many victims are there? I walked deeper into the unit, my heart pounding. The first box was labeled, Jennifer, Bone Marrow 2019. Inside were financial documents, medical records, and personal photos. At the very bottom was a small velvet jewelry box containing what looked like an engagement ring. The second box made my knees weak. Denise, Kidney 2024. Inside were things I thought I'd lost in the divorce. My grandmother's pearl necklace. Photo albums from our honeymoon. Love letters I'd written to Robert during his treatment. And at the bottom, a folder labeled Insurance Policies. Maria, look at this. I handed her the folder. She opened it and her face went white. He took out a life insurance policy on you for $2 million. Right before your surgery. The stenographer was documenting everything, but I barely heard her. All I could focus on was the third box, labeled Patricia Liver 2017. There's another one, I said, pulling out the box. Patricia's story was the same as ours. Liver donation, immediate post-surgery divorce, financial ruin. But her box also contained something that made my blood run cold. Medical records showing complications from her donation surgery. Complications that had required multiple follow-up procedures. Procedures that Robert, as the recipient, should have paid for. Procedures that had bankrupted Patricia and eventually led to her losing her house. We need to find these women, I said. Patricia and Jennifer. They need to know they're not alone. Simone was standing in front of a shelf of photo albums, her face pale. There are more boxes. Look. In the back corner were 3 more boxes. Sandra, bone marrow 2015. Maria, kidney 2013. Destiny, liver 2020. 5 women. 5 life-saving donations. 5 destroyed lives. And then I saw something that made everything click into place. A medical file with Robert's real diagnosis history. Maria, look at this. His medical records going back 15 years. She read over my shoulder, and I watched her lawyer's brain put the pieces together. He's been faking illnesses, she said slowly. Look at these dates. The lymphoma diagnosis came right after he met Jennifer. The first kidney problem appeared right after he met Maria. The liver issues started when he began dating Destiny. What are you saying? I'm saying Robert Thompson has been poisoning himself to create medical emergencies, then finding women to save his life so he can rob them. Maria's voice was shaking with rage. This isn't just fraud. This is attempted murder. The stenographer stopped typing. I'm sorry, did you say attempted murder? Look at these pharmacy records. Maria pointed to a receipt from the bottom of Robert's file. He's been buying medications that would damage specific organs, then stopping them just before he gets so sick he needs a transplant. He's literally been killing himself slowly and using these women to bring him back to life. I sank onto a plastic chair, overwhelmed. This was so much worse than anything I'd imagined. Robert hadn't just used me for my kidney, he'd almost killed himself to manipulate me into giving it to him. We need to call the FBI, Simone said. This isn't just fraud anymore. Maria was already on her phone. I'm calling the federal prosecutor's office. With this evidence, they'll have an arrest warrant by morning. While she made her calls, I walked through the storage unit one more time, looking at the artifacts of Robert's crimes. 5 women's lives reduced to boxes of evidence. 5 women who'd given everything to save a man who'd never deserved saving. But we'd found each other now. And together, we were going to make sure Robert Thompson never hurt another woman. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer. Simone gave me your number. I've been waiting 5 years for this moment. Can we meet tomorrow? I looked around the storage unit one more time, at all the evidence of Robert's systematic cruelty. Then I texted back, yes. And bring the others if you can find them. It's time to end this. Jennifer Washington looked like she'd been through hell and back. At 39, she had the kind of exhaustion in her eyes that comes from years of fighting battles alone. We met at a small diner in East Point, not far from Grandma Ruby's house. I thought I was crazy, were the first words out of her mouth. For 5 years, I thought I was the crazy ex-wife who couldn't let go. You're not crazy, I said, sliding into the booth across from her. You were the first survivor. She smiled, but it was a sad smile. Survivor. I like that better than victim. We ordered coffee and she told me her story. How she'd met Robert at a cancer support group, not as a patient but as a volunteer. How he'd charmed her with his bravery in facing lymphoma. How she'd offered to get tested as a bone marrow donor and turned out to be a perfect match. The surgery was rough, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. Bone marrow donation is no joke. But I did it because I loved him and I thought he loved me. When did he change? Right after the transplant took. Literally the day his doctor said the cancer was gone, he started becoming distant. Started working late, started picking fights. I thought it was post-trauma stress. How long before he left? 6 months. And just like with you, he cleaned out our accounts and left me with all the medical debt. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. But unlike you, I hired a private investigator right away. I've been tracking him for 5 years. She opened the folder to reveal photographs, financial records, and what looked like surveillance reports. Jennifer, this is incredible. It's my life's work. After Robert destroyed me, I made it my mission to document everything he did. I knew he'd do it again and I wanted to be ready. She pointed to a timeline she'd created. Look at this pattern. The timeline was meticulous. Every relationship Robert had been in for the past 10 years, correlated with medical diagnoses and donor surgeries. It was a predator's playbook. I tried to warn Destiny when I found out he was dating her, Jennifer continued. She wouldn't listen. Thought I was just jealous. I tried to warn you too, but I couldn't find a way to contact you that didn't sound crazy. How did you find out about me? Hospital records are public if you know where to look. When I saw your name on a kidney transplant report, I knew he was at it again. She leaned forward. But Denise, you're different from the rest of us. How? You fought back. The rest of us just disappeared. We were so broken and ashamed that we crawled away and tried to rebuild in silence. You got a lawyer. You're making noise. You're not going away quietly. The bell above the diner door chimed and 3 women walked in. They looked around uncertainly until Jennifer waved them over. Patricia, Sandra, and Maria, Jennifer said as they approached our table. I found them. Patricia was in her early 40s, a teacher from Alabama who'd driven up for this meeting. Sandra was younger, maybe 28, with the kind of nervous energy that comes from trauma. Maria was around my age, a dental hygienist who'd moved to Florida after Robert destroyed her life. We pushed 2 tables together and ordered more coffee. Then one by one they told their stories. Patricia had donated part of her liver to Robert in 2017. The surgery complications had required 3 additional operations, all of which Robert was legally obligated to pay for. He'd divorced her instead and disappeared, leaving her with hundreds of thousands in medical debt. Sandra had donated bone marrow in 2015. She'd been only 23, fresh out of college, working as a physical therapist. Robert had convinced her they were soulmates, married her 6 months after they met, then left her ruined and alone. Maria had been Robert's second kidney donor. She'd met him in 2013, when she was going through a difficult divorce and was emotionally vulnerable. He'd love-bombed her, married her quickly, and discarded her just as fast. The pattern is always the same, Jennifer said when everyone had finished sharing. He targets women who are either naturally nurturing or going through emotional trauma. He studies us, figures out exactly what we need to hear, then becomes that perfect man until he gets what he needs. But why? Sandra asked the question we'd all been wondering. Why go through all this trouble? There are easier ways to steal money from people. Jennifer opened another folder. Because it's not just about money. Look at these psychological evaluations I had done. She'd hired a forensic psychologist to analyze Robert's behavior pattern. The report was chilling. He's a psychological sadist, Jennifer read from the report. The organ donation creates the ultimate power dynamic. His victims literally give him life, then he takes everything else from them. It's not enough for him to steal money, he needs to break them completely. But it's more than that, Maria added. Every single one of us has something else in common. We're all black women. The table went quiet. It was true. Looking around at the 5 of us, the racial pattern was undeniable. He specifically targets black women, Patricia said slowly, because he knows the system won't believe us when we try to get help. Who's going to take the side of a bitter black ex-wife over a sick white man? And black women are raised to be caregivers, Sandra added, to put everyone else's needs before our own. We're the perfect victims for someone like him. I looked around the table at these incredible women who'd been broken by the same monster, who'd survived and found each other. We weren't just victims, we were warriors. So what do we do now? I asked. Jennifer smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Now we destroy him. Together. The FBI field office in Atlanta was nothing like I'd expected. Instead of the dramatic, high-tech headquarters from TV shows, it was a bland government building with fluorescent lights and outdated furniture. But Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez was exactly what we needed. Sharp, experienced, and absolutely furious about what Robert had done. In 20 years of investigating fraud cases, I've never seen anything like this, she said, spreading crime scene photos from the storage unit across the conference table. This level of premeditation, this systematic targeting of victims, it's unprecedented. All 5 of us survivors were there, along with Maria Martinez and 2 other attorneys who joined our legal team. The case had grown so complex it required specialists in federal fraud, medical malpractice, and civil rights law. The good news is we have enough evidence to charge him with federal fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy, Agent Rodriguez continued. The bad news is we can't find him. My stomach dropped. What do you mean you can't find him? Robert Thompson closed all his bank accounts 3 days ago, right after you met with Simone. He withdrew everything in cash and disappeared. The house is empty, his car is gone, and his cell phone is disconnected. He knew we were on to him, Simone said quietly. She'd been the most shaken by Robert's disappearance, convinced it was somehow her fault. It's not your fault, Jennifer said firmly. Robert is smart and he's done this before. He probably had an exit strategy from the beginning. Agent Rodriguez nodded. We've put out a federal warrant, and his face is going out to every law enforcement agency in the country. He can run, but he can't hide forever. What about the money? Patricia asked. He stole from all of us. Can we get it back? We've frozen every account we can find, but most of the money is gone. He's been moving it offshore for months. Agent Rodriguez pulled out another folder. However, there's something else. We found evidence that Robert has been collecting life insurance payouts. The room went silent. What kind of life insurance payouts? Maria Martinez asked. 3 of his former victims have died from complications related to their donations. The insurance policies he took out on them paid out a total of $4.2 million. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You're saying he killed them? We're saying the complications from their donation surgeries were severe enough to cause their deaths, and Robert was the beneficiary of life insurance policies he took out on them without their knowledge. Sandra started crying. Oh my God, he was trying to kill us all. Not trying, Agent Rodriguez said grimly. Succeeding. We're reopening those death investigations as potential homicides. The meeting continued for 2 more hours, but I barely heard any of it. All I could think about was how close I'd come to being victim number 4. How Robert had probably been disappointed that I'd recovered so well from the kidney surgery. How he might still be planning to finish what he started. When we left the FBI office, the 5 of U.S. survivors decided to stick together. It wasn't safe for any of us to be alone while Robert was still out there. You're all staying at my house, Grandma Ruby announced when I called to tell her about the meeting. I don't want any of you girls alone until they catch that devil. Grandma Ruby's house became our headquarters. Jennifer set up her investigation materials in the spare bedroom. Patricia worked with the attorneys on financial recovery. Sandra and Maria started reaching out to other potential victims they'd identified through social media. I found myself becoming the unofficial leader of our group, coordinating between the FBI, our legal team, and the media attention that was starting to build around our case. It felt strange being the center of attention when just a few weeks ago I'd been hiding in shame. Dr. Brooks called that evening with an update on the job offer. The position is still available if you want it. In fact, after everything that's happened, the hospital board wants to create a new program specifically for protecting organ donors from exploitation. What kind of program? Donor advocacy. Background checks on recipients, financial protection services, psychological support. You'd be the perfect person to run it. It was tempting, but I couldn't think about the future while Robert was still out there. Can I give you an answer after he's caught? Of course. But Denise, you should know that what you've done, bringing these women together, fighting back instead of disappearing, you've probably saved lives. There are other women out there who were going to be Robert's next victims, and now they're safe because of you. That night, as we all sat around Ruby's kitchen table sharing stories and planning our next moves, I realized something had fundamentally changed inside me. The broken, ashamed woman who'd sat crying in a hospital parking garage was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who'd found her purpose in protecting others. Someone who'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the foundation for the best thing you'll ever do. But first, we had to find Robert Thompson and make sure he never hurt another woman again. Robert made contact on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after he'd disappeared. I was in Grandma Ruby's kitchen making coffee for everyone when my phone rang with a blocked number. Hello, sweetheart. My hands started shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The sound of his voice brought back every moment of manipulation, every lie, every betrayal. Robert, you've been very busy, haven't you? Making friends with my other wives, talking to the FBI. That wasn't very nice, Denise. I signaled to Jennifer, who was at the kitchen table working on her laptop. She immediately started recording the call. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Somewhere your new friends can't find me. His voice was calm, almost amused. I have to admit, I'm impressed. I didn't think you had it in you to fight back like this. You tried to kill me. Kill you? Sweetheart, I saved your life. Before me, you were just another lonely nurse going nowhere. I gave you purpose. I gave you meaning. You should be grateful. The narcissism was breathtaking. Even now, even with everything exposed, he still believed he was the victim. You poisoned yourself to manipulate me into giving you my kidney. I created opportunities for us to bond. There's a difference. He paused. But you didn't appreciate the gift I gave you, did you? You turned my other wives against me. You brought the government into our private business. Our private business? Robert, you killed 3 women. 3 women who couldn't handle the stress of post-surgical complications. Not my fault they were weak. Jennifer had called Agent Rodriguez, who was now listening on speakerphone while trying to trace the call. What do you want, Robert? I want you to call off the dogs. Tell the FBI you made everything up. Tell your lawyer friends you changed your mind. Make this all go away and I'll disappear forever. And if I don't? Then I'll have to protect myself. and protecting myself means making sure none of you can testify against me. The threat was clear. He was planning to kill us. You can't run forever. Can't I? I have money, fake IDs, and a very specific skill set when it comes to making people disappear. The only reason you're still alive is because I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. The right thing would have been not destroying innocent women's lives. Innocent. He laughed and the sound made my skin crawl. Denise, you gave me your kidney because you were desperate to keep a man who was already planning to leave you. Patricia donated her liver because she thought it would make her special. Sandra gave me bone marrow because she was lonely and pathetic. None of you were innocent, you were all just stupid. Something inside me snapped. The fear I'd been carrying for weeks transformed into pure rage. You know what, Robert? You're right about one thing. I was stupid. I was stupid enough to love a monster. I was stupid enough to give you a piece of myself. But you know what I'm not stupid enough to do? I'm not stupid enough to let you keep hurting women. Denise. No, you listen to me. You can threaten me all you want, but I'm not backing down. Neither are Jennifer, Patricia, Sandra, or Maria. We're not the broken, isolated women you left behind anymore. We found each other, and we're stronger together than you ever were alone. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Yes, I do. You're capable of preying on women who love you. You're capable of poisoning yourself for sympathy. You're capable of stealing and lying and running away when things get hard. But you know what you're not capable of? You're not capable of being a real man. A real man doesn't need to destroy women to feel powerful. The line went quiet for a long moment. You're going to regret this, Denise? The only thing I regret is that it took me so long to see who you really are. I'll be seeing you soon. The line went dead. Agent Rodriguez immediately got on her radio, coordinating with the tech team to trace the call. We got a partial trace. He's somewhere in South Florida, probably the Miami area. How soon can you get agents down there? I asked. They're already mobilizing. But Denise, you need to understand, this changes everything. He's made a direct threat against all of you. We need to put you in protective custody until we find him. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. I'm not running from him anymore. Denise, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. Robert Thompson has been controlling my life for 8 years. He controlled when I got married, when I donated my kidney, when I got divorced, and when I learned the truth. I'm not letting him control whether I live in fear. Jennifer looked up from her computer. She's right. We're all targets whether we hide or not. At least if we stay together, stay visible, we can help catch him. Agent Rodriguez looked frustrated, but I could see her weighing the options. Okay. But you don't go anywhere without federal protection. And the moment we get a location on him, you all go into a safe house until he's arrested. That evening, as we sat around Ruby's dining room table with armed FBI agents stationed outside, I realized something important had happened during that phone call. For the first time since this nightmare began, I hadn't been afraid of Robert Thompson. I'd been angry. And anger, I was learning, was so much more powerful than fear. The call came at 4 a.m. on a Friday. Agent Rodriguez's voice was tense but triumphant. We found him. Miami Beach. Hotel room registered under a fake name, but he used his real credit card for room service. Rookie mistake. I was awake instantly. Is he in custody? Not yet. We've got the hotel surrounded, but we want to take him alive. He might have information about other victims we haven't found yet. She paused. There's something else. He's not alone. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? There's a woman with him. Young, African American, looks like she's in her early 20s. We think she might be his next target. All 5 of us survivors were in the car within the hour, driving toward Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport with a federal escort. The FBI wanted us in Miami in case they needed victim statements or identification help. The plane ride was tense. Jennifer spent the time reviewing her files, cross-referencing Robert's pattern with dating apps and social media. Patricia and Sandra worked with the legal team on additional charges. Maria sat quietly, staring out the window. I found myself thinking about the woman with Robert. 20 years old, according to the surveillance photos Agent Rodriguez had shown us. Barely older than I'd been when my parents died. Probably trusting, probably vulnerable, probably believing every lie Robert was telling her. We have to save her, I said out loud. We will, Jennifer replied without looking up from her files. When we landed in Miami, Agent Rodriguez was waiting with a full briefing. The woman with Robert was named Keisha Matthews, a nursing student at Miami-Dade College. She'd been dating Robert for 6 weeks, ever since he'd arrived in Florida. According to her roommate, Keisha thinks Robert is a medical researcher who survived cancer, Agent Rodriguez explained as we rode toward the FBI field office. He told her he's writing a book about organ donation and needs to interview her about her experiences as a future healthcare provider. Same playbook, Sandra said bitterly. Find their weakness and exploit it. The roommate also said Keisha has been getting sick lately. Stomach problems, fatigue, dizziness. Started about 2 weeks ago. My blood ran cold. He's poisoning her. That's what we think. We found evidence in his hotel room, medications that would cause kidney damage if administered over time. We spent the day at the FBI office, reviewing surveillance footage and helping plan Robert's arrest. The hotel was completely surrounded, but they were waiting for the right moment to move in without endangering Keisha. At 6 p.m. that moment came. He's leaving the hotel alone, came the radio transmission. Subject is walking toward the beach. Female victim is still in the room. Move in, Agent Rodriguez ordered. We watched the arrest on live surveillance feeds. Robert Thompson, the man who destroyed so many lives, taken down by a SWAT team on a Miami Beach sidewalk. He didn't resist, just stood there with his hands up, looking more annoyed than afraid. But even in handcuffs he was still Robert. Still charming, still manipulative. I could see him talking to the agents, probably trying to convince them this was all a misunderstanding. Can we see him? I asked Agent Rodriguez. That's not a good idea. I need to see him. We all do. We need to look at him and know that he can't hurt anyone else. An hour later, we were in the observation room of the FBI field office, looking through one-way glass at Robert Thompson in an interrogation room. He looked smaller than I remembered, less powerful. Just a sad, middle-aged man in an orange jumpsuit. He looks pathetic, Patricia said. He always was pathetic, Jennifer replied. We just couldn't see it because we were looking at him through love. Agent Rodriguez entered the interrogation room with another agent. They started going through the charges, multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, insurance fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, attempted murder. Robert's lawyer was trying to get him to stay quiet, but Robert couldn't help himself. He started talking, trying to justify his actions, trying to make himself look like the victim. These women knew what they were getting into, he said. Organ donation is always a risk. I never forced anyone to do anything. You systematically poison yourself to create medical emergencies, Agent Rodriguez replied. You manipulated vulnerable women into major surgery, then financially destroyed them. I gave them purpose. Before me, they were nobody special. I'd heard enough. I asked Agent Rodriguez if I could go in. Denise, that's really not. Please. I need to face him. I need him to see what he didn't destroy. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Robert Thompson for the first time since he'd served me divorce papers. He looked at me with that same charming smile that had once made my heart race. Hello, sweetheart. You look good. Strong. I'm strong. Thanks to you. I don't understand. You broke me down so completely that I had to rebuild myself from nothing. And when I did, I built something you could never destroy. I leaned forward. I built the sisterhood of survivors who will make sure you never hurt another woman. Denise, you're taking this too personally. Robert, shut up. The words came out calm and clear. For 8 years you had power over me. You don't anymore. You're going to prison for the rest of your life, and I'm going to use every day of my freedom to help other women avoid monsters like you. His smile faltered for the first time. You can't. I can. And I will. Because that's what strong women do, Robert. We protect each other from predators like you. I stood up to leave but turned back one more time. Oh, and Robert? Your kidney? The one I gave you? Every day it keeps you alive in prison will be a reminder that a woman you destroyed is still out there, stronger than ever, making sure you can never hurt anyone again. I walked out of that room feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear Robert yelling, but his words had no power over me anymore. The monster was caged. And I was finally free. 6 months later. The courtroom was packed for Robert Thompson's sentencing. All 5 of us survivors sat in the front row, along with Keisha, who had become our 6th sister after her rescue in Miami. Behind us sat dozens of other women. Women who'd come forward after our story went national, women who'd been contacted by Robert but escaped before he could hurt them, women who simply wanted to show support for survivors speaking truth to power. Judge Patricia Hayes had been assigned to the federal case, and she'd made it clear from day one that she had no patience for Robert's manipulation tactics. Mr. Thompson, she said, looking down at him from the bench, in 30 years on this bench, I have never seen such systematic, predatory behavior designed specifically to harm vulnerable women. You didn't just commit fraud, you weaponized love, trust, and the human instinct to help others. Robert's lawyer had tried everything: diminished capacity, mental illness, childhood trauma. Nothing stuck. The evidence was too overwhelming, and Robert's own recorded statements had made it impossible to claim innocence. "Your Honor," I said when invited to give my victim impact statement, "Robert Thompson didn't just steal money from me. He didn't just take my kidney. He tried to steal my identity as a strong, capable woman who deserved love and respect." I looked directly at Robert as I spoke. He wouldn't meet my eyes. But what he didn't understand is that breaking someone doesn't always destroy them. Sometimes it reveals who they really are underneath. Robert Thompson thought he was taking everything from me, but actually he gave me the greatest gift of my life. "What gift is that, Miss Thompson?" Judge Hayes asked. He showed me my own strength. And he led me to 5 incredible women who became my sisters in survival. Together, we've created something beautiful from something ugly. I gestured to Jennifer, who stood up beside me. "We've created the Thompson Foundation for Organ Donor Protection," Jennifer announced. "A non-profit organization dedicated to protecting vulnerable donors from predatory recipients." Patricia rose next. "We've helped pass legislation in 12 states requiring psychological evaluation and background checks for organ recipients who have living donors." Sandra and Maria stood together. "We've created a support network for organ donors who've been financially exploited, providing legal aid and emergency assistance." Finally, Keisha stood, the youngest of us but no less fierce. "And we've established a scholarship fund for young women pursuing healthcare careers, so they'll be educated enough to recognize predators like Robert Thompson." Judge Hayes smiled, the first time I'd seen her expression soften during the entire proceeding. "Mr. Thompson," she said, turning back to him, "these remarkable women have taken the worst thing you did to them and turned it into protection for others. That's the opposite of what you intended, isn't it?" Robert's lawyer whispered something to him, but Robert shook his head and stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to speak." Against his lawyer's visible objections, Robert approached the podium. "I want to say that I never meant for anyone to get hurt. These women, they're special. They gave me life when I was dying, and I didn't know how to handle that debt. I made mistakes." The courtroom was silent. "But I want them to know that their gifts, their kidneys, their liver, their bone marrow, those gifts are still inside me. And every day, I'm reminded of their generosity." He looked directly at me for the first time since Miami. "Denise, your kidney saved my life. I'm sorry I couldn't save yours in return." It wasn't a real apology, it was still manipulative, still trying to make himself look sympathetic. But for the first time I felt something I hadn't expected: pity. This man had been so afraid of being alone, so terrified of being ordinary, that he'd destroyed multiple lives just to feel special. And now he was going to spend the rest of his life in a cage, completely alone. Judge Hayes sentenced Robert to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. He was also ordered to pay restitution to all his victims, though we all knew most of the money was gone forever. After the sentencing, all 6 of us survivors stood on the courthouse steps for photographs. The media had been following our story for months, and we decided to use that attention to help other women. "What's next for you all?" a reporter asked. I looked at my sisters, women who'd been broken by the same monster and had rebuilt themselves into warriors. "What's next is we keep fighting," I said. "We keep protecting other women. We keep turning our pain into power." That evening we had dinner at Grandma Ruby's house one more time before everyone went back to their respective cities. But this time, it wasn't a gathering of victims seeking refuge. It was a celebration of survivors who'd found their purpose. "You know what I realized today?" I said as we sat around Ruby's dining room table. "Robert thought he was writing our stories. He thought he was the main character and we were just supporting players in his drama. But he was wrong," Jennifer said, raising her glass of sweet tea. "We were always the main characters in our own stories. He was just a chapter we had to get through." "A really awful chapter," Sandra added, laughing. "But not the ending," Patricia said firmly. "Definitely not the ending," Keisha agreed. Dr. Brooks had called earlier that day with an update on the donor advocacy program at the hospital. It was expanding nationally, and they wanted me to head up the entire initiative. "Are you going to take it?" Ruby asked. I looked around the table at these incredible women who'd become family, at the grandmother who'd taught me to be strong, at the life I'd built from the ashes of the one Robert had tried to destroy. "Yes," I said. "I'm going to take it. We're going to make sure no woman ever goes through what we went through. And if someone does," Maria said, "they'll know they're not alone. Because we'll be there." As I drove home that night to my new apartment, small but mine, paid for with my new salary and the settlement money we'd recovered, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Broken, ashamed, hiding in a hospital parking garage. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone with purpose, someone surrounded by a sisterhood that couldn't be broken. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, my name is Angela. I saw your story on the news. I think my boyfriend might be doing something similar to what Robert did to you. Can you help me?" I pulled over and typed back immediately, "Yes. You're not alone. Call me." Because that's what survivors do. We reach back and pull the next woman to safety. Robert Thompson had tried to write a story about a predator who destroyed women's lives. Instead, he'd written a story about 6 women who refused to stay broken, who found each other in the darkness, and who turned their pain into protection for others. That was the story that would matter. That was the story that would last.